Hello, and welcome to the We Are Power podcast. If this is your first time here, the We Are Power podcast is the podcast for you, your career, and your life. We release an episode every single Monday with listeners in over 60 countries worldwide, where you'll hear personal life stories, top-notch industry advice, and key leadership insight from amazing role models. As We Are Power is the umbrella brand to Northern Empowerment Awards, which celebrates hundreds of female role models and advocates every year. This is where you can hear stories from all of our awards alumni and stay up to date with everything MPW Awards and We Are Power. I'm delighted today to be joined by Tarifa Simpson from Forvis Mazars. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We have known each other for quite a long time now, haven't you? How long have you been at Mazars now?
I'm coming up to 5 years.
Wow, where did that time go?
Yeah, it's gone really fast. I was a lockdown hire, so it's kind of slow but also fast at the same time.
Now, tell us about your role, because I know you talk about you fell into accounting.
Yeah. And I did. So I originally thought I would go into medicine, and so did a lot of science A levels and things, was really into that. And that didn't work out for me. Lesson learned. And so I stayed at my hometown, Birmingham, did my degree there. As part of that, I had a year out. So it was quite good because they sort of forced you to have a year out to kind of, do an internship, which was fantastic to me. Went down to London, thought I'd see what that's about.
Bright lights, big city.
Exactly. And I think it confirmed, I didn't feel like I needed to be in London, but I loved the experience. I did a role in global marketing, so something very different. Again, fantastic, really good experience, but it actually gave me an insight into professional services. It wasn't something that I knew any family members or friends were into, so it was quite an education in itself. I then found the firm that I joined, sort of, became aware of them. So I did another internship with KPMG. So I'm a big fan of sort of different internships and using that as a route to figure out what you want to do. And then I got offered a graduate role. And they said that because I'd done this internship, I could choose whichever office. And I was very sensible. I said I'd stay at home, raise some money to buy a house, do all the sort of things you think you're meant to do. And when I went for the interview, they said, we've got a new role, and it's in something called transaction services, and we think that you'd be suited to it. So will you come up and chat to the partner and see what you think? And I was like, is this a trick question?
What is it? What is it?
Yeah, so I was applying for a similar but different role. And from there, what was a conversation turned out to be a job offer, turned out to be something that I did with that firm for 17 years. Wow. Had 2 children, had a fantastic career, travelled the world. And I did fall into it. And part of that was falling into accounting as well. So I chartered as an accountant as well. I fell into it, but it was the best decision ever. And I think it was very true to something I've done along my career, and even how I sort of came to be at Forvis Mazars, which is, what's the worst that can happen? I mean that in a very positive sense, give every opportunity a go. Had conversations with the firm, really liked the team that I was joining, really liked the sense of actually being really entrepreneurial. So, building up a team in the Manchester area, supporting clients across the north, which I'd been based in Manchester for a long time by that point. So it really appealed, and I just felt, okay, now's the time to maybe take the risk, take the chance. What I hadn't realised is I made that big decision 2 weeks before we went into lockdown.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was scary. It was quite a scary decision to make. But
how did you build those connections? Because, we talk about the power of connections, don't we? And building those individuals that are either going to be part of your team or you're working as part of, or you've got to collaborate with. And it was in a time where we were making the world up and the rules up as we were every day, weren't we? Making history.
Yeah. And I think part and part it was flexibility. So for the first few months that I joined, I agreed with the firm that I wouldn't come and work full time. So they gave me a lot of flexibility because I didn't know whether nurseries were going to close down. I had a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old at that time. So, I had a young family. And I knew that, it could be very challenging to actually come in and do the justice that I thought I needed this role to, and this impact that I wanted to make. The connections bit was difficult. I mean, it was obviously all virtual. Yeah. But I think that the really nervous part was, it's a people business. It's all about connections with people, and yes, you take them through actually a really scary time in their professional or business career. You're helping them sell their business. You're helping them buy something that takes, the business into another stratosphere of success. So there's a lot of emotions in that. And I think what it proved to me that those people where I'd had really successful transactions with, that we'd worked together really well, first of all, they were hugely supportive. So when I announced that I was moving, a lot of well wishes and success that gave me the boost. And then it was really just bit by bit, just making those connections. And they had to be authentic. So, it wasn't about sort of peppering everyone that I knew to say I'm here and a big sell. And I've always been quite true to that. I think people can see through that clearly. But, we're here, we're a business and, I have to sort of, show that I can make it work. But I think gradually over time, I used my network, to find, individuals that could be referred on. I used it to just find out what was going on in the marketplace, because a lot of it was accepting what was there, that you weren't going to suddenly be winning lots of projects and starting work. That just wasn't the world we were in. So very much using that time to just actually in quite a nice way, take stock and think more about sort of how I wanted to be individually as a partner, how I wanted to be in the firm. So it gave me actually a lot of thinking time about that style, because I'd worked in the industry, I'd worked in my particular profession and team, transactions for 17, 18 years by that point. So I know a lot about the doing, and that goes as a given, but actually that heightened sense of how you interact as a partner, where the buck stops with you, you've got to make those really difficult decisions. That bit, it's a bit of an art, and there isn't a textbook of how to do it. And I'm sure, a lot of the listeners and watchers of this will appreciate that as well, that, you get to a point, and it's certainly a piece of advice that I impart to a lot of people that I mentor as well is, you've got to find that authenticity, because otherwise it's really tough. Yeah. You just can't keep it up otherwise, I think.
And I know mentoring is something that you're very passionate about, and you've been a finalist for Northern Power Women Awards on a couple of occasions. What is it that really spurred you into being a mentor? Were you on the receiving end?
I was. I did have some mentors, because the profession that I went into, you go back, so I sort of started in the early 2000s, but back in the 90s it was, it was like special projects. So it was very much done out of existing teams. There wasn't sort of a dedicated team for it. So it was still evolving. So I was kind of joining at a time when it was very new, and at a time when they wouldn't often take graduates that were still studying for their accountancy exams. So it was all new in terms of how people had to coach me and train me and help me to understand what was going on. And there wasn't the same web resources or, online resources to research in the background. So mentors were really important about helping me to kind of bridge that gap and being a bit of a safe space for me to say, I really don't know what that means, and, when we're in that meeting and someone said, oh, this or this, what were they actually talking about? How does that actually relate to the big picture of what we're doing? So I did have quite a few mentors. They weren't titled that way, I never thought of that in that way.
Mentors come in different boxes, don't they? In shapes and sizes, and
they do,
and time.
And they do. Oh, absolutely. And I think I then got access to sort of formal mentoring courses. Or actually, it was one helping female founder startups.
Oh, okay.
And that was when I'd moved to Manchester, and it was a program. And, it was a range of businesses. One lady, she basically supplied costumes into the big television companies or into theatres, etc. So it was that, as well as makeup, professional makeup products. So I was mentoring her. So it was trying to switch my mind to actually, where are you trying to get to, and help individuals actually to think out situations. And I just really enjoyed it.
It's addictive, isn't it? Don't you think?
It is. It's something I don't think I can ever really convey how much I love doing it, and how I don't know. I think just because I enjoy it, I don't know if I'm any good at it. I think my mentees would have to be testament to that. But I do really enjoy it, and I think it's all about just being interested in someone. And we were just talking earlier before, we started recording around, finding those different connecting people. It's a lot of that as well. It maybe strays more into sort of sponsoring, I think, where you sort of go, right, I know such a body.
Yeah.
Why don't you just have a chat?
If I don't know a woman or man who can, I always think that this community is about, because you never want anyone to be without that information.
Yeah.
A bit like taking it back to yourself around that table going, what did that mean again?
Yeah.
Having no safe space to ask the questions, be curious, and I think that's where the different forms of mentoring comes in. And I know you've got a new role now, haven't you? Which is a UK-wide role. What has been, it's a big role.
It is.
What are you, have you been most sort of excited and motivated about creating this high-performing team, I suppose?
Yeah, it's been a challenge, and actually for about a year beforehand, the idea of taking over the head of role, so in my line of due diligence, to take over the team for the UK, it'd been discussions, and I was really keen to do it. As I said, never want to sort of not take up an opportunity, so I was really keen to do it, but I was nervous. I knew it was a big challenge. I knew that it was a team that was obviously located in a number of offices, and I knew that it wouldn't be easy. And I knew that there was lots of things that I wanted to do whilst also driving the business and ambitions that I've got here in the North. So I was apprehensive, and even practical things like my daughter was starting school. So I was even like, I've got a lot going on personally. And so I'm not sure if I do want like another thing to actually, build up. And that was really well respected. So at first, I think it felt like, there's never going to be a perfect time, but, we understand that there is lots going on in everyone's life. So don't put extra pressure on yourself when you don't have to. But no, when it got announced and it was happening, I was really excited. And, it's a fantastic team. First and foremost, it is a fantastic team. So, to a certain extent, there's not a lot I need to do on that, carry on being fantastic. However, I think everyone can always recognise when they, you come to taking on that sort of role, you see it through a different lens. I see it through being, from a graduate all the way up to a partner in a lot of different teams, in a lot of different project situations, in a lot of different cities. So I feel like there's a lot of that I can bring to say, there are different ways of doing this. Let's give it a try. I never know that it's going to work out, but I'm willing to kind of take the hit.
Be brave.
It's not, yeah, exactly, totally. And I think one thing that I've been doing a lot of sort of around the time of taking on that role is really sort of listening to a lot of audiobooks and reading a lot around sort of, I guess, the human psychology and the psyche around, why people think the way they do, how you can better communicate with each other, the psychology around, people that operate businesses and are part of high functioning teams. What do they do well? But how do they keep that authentic to their own style? I think going back to the point about leading and sort of, advising people in your own authentic way, it's the same for leading a team in this. We're all working with very different clients, and they can absolutely do that in a way that works for them. And clearly our clients love that too. But how can then I understand that better and understand the differences? So that's been quite a fascinating, I suppose, side part of just the doing of the role.
top tips, because I know you love the
Yeah.
Audible books,
Yeah,
and you've been reading about leadership, reading about the communication styles.
Yeah.
Any faves out there that you're reading at the moment or
Yeah,
have read that
so
you've gone, must read that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of flip between sort of like true crime podcasts and series to then like sort of, deep psychology books. I really liked, so actually speaking of psychology, I listened to The Psychology of Money, which is actually quite a short listen, which is refreshing because some audiobooks can be quite long.
Yes.
I know I do a fair few miles in the car, but even so. So Psychology of Money was great. And actually it was less about, how do you make more money? It was more about what's the thinking behind what drives individuals to, start a business, to take the next leap. How have we as individuals evolved? When we think about the financial crash, what actually happened there? How was, even when we think about sort of the baby boomer era and post-war, what was the thinking around that and how has that evolved over time? And what we see as sort of success now versus what we did back then. And that was really fascinating. So I love that book. So that's definitely a recommend. It's well known as well. I'm listening to Super Communicators at the moment. That's a great one. Still going through that. But again, it's talking about lots of the sort of non-verbal cues, how you can, I suppose, lean into a conversation. So how you ask the right questions or really think about the person that's here with me or the team that's here with me. What do they want to get out of this session? What's on their agenda? And not in a strategic way, actually genuinely using those opportunities, particularly post-COVID, to really start to connect with individuals again so that you get what's motivating them. Because I suppose the one thing you can guarantee is it's going to be different to what motivates you. So you've got to kind of find those common paths. But yeah, it's fascinating. There's, lots in that book, lots of different
This could have been your sliding doors moment, I think, in
It could
psychology,
have.
couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my degree was very varied and I quite liked that. But I kind of look back now and certainly the way that I'm really interested about what makes people tick. I could definitely see myself doing something like psychology degree or something when I find the time.
We've had Dr. Penny Trainer on the podcast, and she does DJing as her side hustle. You know what I mean? So there's always space for a side hustle. You never know where those skills and that passion is going. Might be your own podcast, it might be your own book series. Who knows? We'll watch this space. But so your little ones now, if my math serves me right, must be what? 5.5, no, six,
yeah.
and 9-ish,
Yeah,
something
that's right.
like that.
Yeah.
My maths is really good.
No,
I could be
impressive.
a mathematician.
That is impressive. So, yeah, son is about to turn 9 in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, my daughter's 6.
And I'm not, I think it's always difficult to sort of look at how there's no having it all. It's impossible, but how do you ensure harmony in your life?
Yes, I mean, I think I'll sort of turn the phrase around, behind this good woman, there's a good man as well, supporting. My husband's also quite senior in his profession. It's a crazy juggle at the best of times, but one that still kind of works for us. And I think I do have mentees, that are in similar positions, either starting a family or thinking about that or looking to take on maybe a more senior role. And they do ask, how do you manage it all? I think you've really got to have that deep, honest conversation with those around you, maybe not a partner, but maybe family or whoever's sort of supporting you as well. Friends too, factor into that about what's going to work. And a bit of acceptance of sort of a trial and error, which, for us, I think has been
innovation.
Yeah, for quite a long time. But it helps, I think, that we're in similar professions, so we have a bit of an insight. I think we also share it with the children. We explain that this is what we're doing, or before I came here, son's actually poorly at home today, so I said to him, "He's fine. He's fine. He's watching David Attenborough, perfectly fine." But we explain to them kind of how our day looks. Actually we share with them that we are traveling around a lot more, but actually for a lot of years, and actually a lot of the younger years, they've seen us at home a lot. But actually now it's, before COVID came, we travelled and, but we'll always be here and this is how our day looks. So it's quite interesting explaining to an 8 and 6-year-old what your job is. They still don't quite get it.
And keep their attention.
Yeah. Other than you write reports and you're
on a train a lot or in a car.
On a train a lot, that too. But it's quite an interesting challenge. And it's a very real challenge. But we just ride with it. I think you just have to do that. And then sometimes I think you just have to accept defeat when things don't work out and say, look, I just can't do that. I just need a bit more time or a bit more space.
And how do you then factor in, because I know something that you're really, really passionate about is weightlifting.
Yes.
And those PBs, how are they going?
Yeah, they're all right. I've got a bit of a shoulder injury at the moment, so that it's I'm having a bit of an easier time, shall we say, at the gym. It's a massive thing for me. I think around sort of wellness and whatever that sort of outlet is. I've been doing sort of strength-based training now for about 4 years solid. And I've done it in various forms before. I've always liked fitness and a challenge. But I really see it as an outlet now. I think even my family will say when I've not had a chance to go to the gym, I'm just not quite the same and I need that release. And I think as I come into, firmly in my 40s, I sort of come to a stage of life for me, it is a really important way for me to get space away from the desk, from the office. Actually, when I've got a lot going in my head, it's a good opportunity for me to think out things, a bit like sort of self-mentoring myself, I guess, really using that time to sort of think through, right, how am I going to approach this opportunity or how am I going to approach, this meeting I've got tomorrow. So I use it a lot for that. But then on the other side, I just like the sort of consistency gains, those little wins every time I go. And how to face setbacks. I've got an injury here and there, but how do I still keep going without kind of stopping and actually going backwards, which is fine. But for me, it's an important kind of test that I feel like I can bring to my professional life as well. How I build that in.
It's a real crossover. It feeds into like the mentoring. It's the feedback for that. It's absolutely all tied up, isn't it? In that, actually it's easy sometimes not to go because it's cold outside or it hasn't quite all gone right at home or at work one day. It's easy not to go. But actually, like you say, if you don't go, you don't become Tarifa.
And it is a really big part of me. I mean, that as well as I think my job can be very pressured at times. The hours can be long. There can be quite a lot of travel. So for me, how I try and build in sort of wellness in terms of what I eat, the activities that I do, it does help me to be at my best. You can't work when you're not energized yourself. You can't give when you've got nothing in the tank, basically. So I think a lot of that is really important, and I don't sort of say it as sort of, oh, look at me, I'm great, I'm eating all this healthy food and stuff. It's kind of choosing my heart, and and it does take a lot of time, but I personally really feel the benefits of it, and it kind of gives me that energy to sort of keep going when I need to.
I love that. I feel like that's our tote bag moment for the day, for your life. You're living like choosing your heart. I love that. I love that. Tarifa, thank you so much for being such an amazing member of our wider community. You're always so keen to get involved and support and give fantastic. Back. So thank you so much. I really look forward to staying connected and seeing you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review or follow us on socials. We are power_net on Insta, TikTok and Twitter. Or we are power on LinkedIn, Facebook. And we are _power on YouTube.